This is part 2 to my rundown of Phillip Paske, based on my research that has spanned Wikipedia, FOIA books, etc. Based on Paske's probation record, he had stated he had been working for Delta, aka Norman, in both July and December 1976. During periods of this time, he would also live with Norman. Other times had been living with his girlfriend. He could claim to be making $3 an hour. Paske would also experience a battery charge in July 1976. In November 1976, Norman would once again go back to jail for where he was indicted on 8 counts and was found guilty of contributing to sexual delinquency of a child. He was ordered to serve over 4 years, despite what investigators had claimed in January 1977. After Norman's conviction that the Delta Project was no longer operating, it continued to operate. In March 1977, Phillip Paske would be arrested again for criminal damage to property. He would also experience an arrest during a trip he had taken to San Diego in October 1977 for a hit and run that occurred due to a DUI. He would be fined $150 though. Despite what his probation record says, he could have been in San Diego at the time. In regards to Norman's cross-country program, where a customer could phone and either Norman or Paske would arrange to have a youth waiting for the customer on a weekend in any city of choice such as Los Angeles or San Diego. Though, records also indicate that the cross-country program had halted its operations when Norman was sent back to jail in November 1976. In June 1978, Paske would be arrested in regards to the Delta Project's operations and was present at the time the apartment was raided. Though there is no evidence in his criminal record, he was convicted. Ties to John Wayne Gacy. It is very hard to pinpoint a direct timeline for when Paske could have first met Gacy, as he had been using his alias patches in 1976, based on his probation record, which had also been used by Michael Rossi and Gacy. Paske was originally introduced to Gacy through David Cram. Cram had warned Gacy of hiring Paske due to his criminal record and being in a mental institution. Though there is no direct murders Phillip Paske can be tied to, an individual who was a street kid from Kansas City had came forward in a Toronto Sun article and had stated that he was picked up hitchhiking outside of Decatur, Alabama, which ran between Mobile and Chicago. The individual claimed that there was 2 men in the vehicle, which was a Chevrolet Caprice, and were offered construction jobs. During the ride, both the men, which the individual identified as Paske and Gacy, had been pushing for him and his companion to take construction jobs in Chicago. Later, they stopped outside of Bowling Green for a hotel, and because of how creeped out the man and his companion felt, they had stolen and dumped Gacy's vehicle in Louisville. The man had also told the reporter that the companion matched the features of Paske and that he seemed to be the one in charge. Though there is no way for sure to verify this story, I will attach a link to it in the description. Nonetheless, it can also be confirmed that Paske had worked for Gacy September 1978, based off of pay stubs he had received in his name from PDM contractors. Paske would later be fired from PDM by Gacy. Gacy would go on the record to claim many things about Paske's personality. The list is long, so I will shorten it somewhat, but he would state that at the age of 25, he had the mind of a 10-year-old, and that he was stupid, ignorant, and could be dangerous. He would claim that he drinks a lot, that he dealt in and took hard drugs while living with a prostitute he would pimp off. He also believed that he was bisexual. Gacy would claim he had had keys to his home. Based on an appellate case document, he did likely have keys to the home. There is also evidence to suspect that snuff films could have taken place in Gacy's residence, as based on the book Killing Time with John Gacy by Karen Conti. Camera equipment had been removed from the home, though this had later been removed from the documents. Though nothing can confirm if Paske was involved in any filming that took place in Gacy's home. Paske had also been on both of the witness lists for the John Wayne Gacy trial, but had never testified in court. Following John Wayne Gacy's conviction, Paske had continued to commit crimes. Between 1979 and 1980, he had a charge for theft, a warrant for failure to appear in court or to follow a court order, a charge for witness tampering, intimidation, and violation of probation. In 1981, he had been arrested for criminal damage to property. In 1981, he had also received a solicitation of prostitution charge after attempting to solicit an officer to commit an act of prostitution for $20, and would later be convicted in October 1983 for the charge abduction of Johnny Gosch. I personally do not feel that Paske was involved in the abduction of Johnny Gosch. rather than the fact that there is no evidence that Paske and Norman had continued operating together. After the dissolution of the Delta Project, there's no evidence of Paske leaving the Chicago area outside of one time he had received in Indiana for a speeding ticket in the 1990s. He had also frequently experienced charges throughout the 1980s. Benashi's original story did not, from my knowledge, also include an individual under the name of Tony based off of DeCamp's book. If someone can show me where this evidence is, then I will change my opinion. He would later be arrested in 1987 for battery, though he would experience his last charge in 1996, which he would be convicted for, which was possession of a controlled substance, based on William Dorsch's book Omnipotent, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Paske would pass away on November 9, 1998, from cancer he had developed from contracting HIV.